Thank you, Conrad, for your remarks on the proceedings of the last few days.
Much has happened since delegates began their work on Wednesday. The United States, who is not only a major funder of the United Nations, but is also an essential member, has decided to defund the UN and give up its veto power in the Security Council, just like the Soviet Union did in our historical Security Council. The delegations of Brazil and the Philippines decided to leave effective January 1st, 2021. Such action challenges the UN, and with that, every single one of you, delegates, admins, chairs. Matilda Gross, this year's president of the General Assembly, has prepared an address on our collective response to the crisis. Madam President of the General Assembly, you now have the floor.
Go, Matilda. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know. Like, you have to look up who they are in the system and then do it.
In what system?
Conrad, can you do it? You actually know how the platform works.
75 years ago, it was on here.
Just continue talking, wasn't on for me either.
75 years ago,
the Second World War ended, leaving not only the city, but also our former diplomacy and civility in ruins. Human suffering was everywhere. Violence and death no longer new. Berlin has witnessed our failures. The League of Nations had allowed Germany to withdraw from their global coalition, and partially because of this inaction, we must look back at a grave past. What we celebrate when we say 75th anniversary of the United Nations is not the lack of pain. These past years may have been called the long peace, but the lack of a global war did not stop us from witnessing destruction and loss, especially this year. What we actually celebrate is a reconciliation with past mistakes and a general promotion of peace. As Yasha Monk addressed in his opening lecture, we will not stop facing challenges to our peace, but that does not mean that we have not made progress. This very progress is threatened by the crisis we have faced over the last few days. It shows that multilateralism is suffering, that member states feel their concerns are irrelevant, that solidarity is not a given. They must be fought for. It must be solved. You, delegates, have worked hard on constructing compromises through clauses. We have come together to try to mend the gaping hole these countries have highlighted. We have tried to strengthen our union through the powers of the United Nations. The UN only functions when there is conversation and debate, but there must be consensus. That the United Nation itself is a legitimate institution.
There must be at least one consensus.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Also, didn't you also say disagreement and debate? That was better.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Haluk took that out. We must create a forum.
I don't like it.
Secretary overruled Haluk.
There must be one consensus. Must be disagreement. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't flow.
Then change it. basically my proposal would be basically they go to clean their rooms and then they come back to the aula, like for the 11th and 12th grade stuff. They basically. What? Like immediately before, I'd say.
No, I'd say immediately after. People are gonna be starving.
Okay, then like we give them food and then we do that. Okay. But still they like have to come back here because else they're gonna be somewhere.
Can you please ask Alex to okay, let's can you send an email out to everyone, send a notification out to all delegates.
Okay. Well, should we skip your part and just move on?
What part?
We're at thank you. My thank you.
Thank you, Matilda, for giving a statement on behalf of the Secretariat about the importance of the UN and why these actions. No, that's stupid. I'll come up with it. The ICJ has prepared a statement on the legality of the actions of Brazil, the US, and the Philippines, which is as follows. Normally, because the Charter gives no clear path for a member state to leave, they are unable to leave. However, if the member state is able to prove that a substantial change has taken place from when the member state had initially joined the organization, clause rebus sic stantibus, the discretion of circumstances when leaving the United Nations, as previously undefined, would be up to the United Nations. There is no clear legal basis for the funding of the United Nations. Therefore, the ICJ is unable to make a decision on the topic. We encourage the Security Council to decide this matter for further conflict. After uniting all MUN committees under this common resolution, we will now vote. Ambassadors, you are expected to vote on behalf of your delegation. Only ambassadors may vote. Please go to the plenary page and vote now. With a vote of whatever passes. To round off this crisis, the delegations of the Philippines, US, and Brazil have made short video statements that will be uploaded to their page. Please go to their embassies to watch them after the closing ceremony.
Over the past 2 days, the International Criminal Court debated the case against al-Hassan. I will now read out the summary and results of the case. Don't have that yet. The International Court of Justice has deliberated on the legality of the relocation of the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. I will now read out the results of their case.
To relate your varied approaches, we will now entertain a short video from the chairs of all BERMUN committees and forums, discussing their deliberations over the course of the last 4 days and recounting their favorite experiences from their committees. I'm guessing we don't have a video.
No, we have a video. We're just not playing it right now.
Okay, next. A special thank you to Helena Hitkin, one of our heads of admin, for compiling this video.
Okay.
Martha.
It's fine. She's doing something that's very important right now.
And let's let Martha do her important
I would
stuff.
now like to introduce Finn Kraft, our quarantine Secretary General, with whom we, the Secretariat, have had the pleasure of working with since March to create this year's conference. Finn always manages to inject a lighthearted note into late-night meetings, and we are all grateful for his help preparing for the conference. You now have the floor. Thank you, Finn, for outlining what all of us the role what? Outlining for all of us what the role identity plays in shaping politics and how the importance of exposing ourselves to perspectives that challenge our own ideas.
Sit down, please.
To reflect further on the work that has been done over the last 4 days, the press team has put together a short video.
Say press video, okay.
We would also like to extend our gratitude to all journalists, editors, and photographers of the press team under the guidance of our press directors, Mr. Robertson and Ms. Krupp. Your contribution to BERMUN is greatly appreciated.
Move the opposition. Matilda, thank you.
Thanks to the efforts of this press team, we've had 11 video submissions for this year's BERMUN's Got Talent. Thank you, Paulina, for organizing this event, and congratulations to the winners. Thank you to all participants for sharing your various talents with us.
Please be quiet in the audience, thank you.
I think Mr. Lang's also trying to submit one of his.
We would now like to take this time to extend our gratitude to everyone involved in executing this year's BERMUN. First and foremost, we would like to thank all of you. As delegates, your preparation, professionalism, and enthusiasm has allowed this year's conference to be a success in all its forms. Of course, none of us would be here if it weren't for all of our directors here in this plenary. We thank you for your commitment and all of the time and organization you have spent to provide this opportunity to your students, from registration to preparing your delegates. We owe our success in large part to your guidance. Please take time to reach out to your director and thank them. We would particularly like to thank our BERMUN directors for their countless after-work hours. No, Mr. Lang, you don't get to hear this. We would especially like to emphasize the contribution of Mrs. Robertson. Thank you for your unlimited commitment and your unfailing belief in us.
Another integral part of the BERMUN is of course the student officer team. Finally, you have watched all your preparations come to life, as abstract as they may have been this year. As chairs in your committees, you managed crises, planned or unplanned, and handled them impressively. We've enjoyed the process of working with you, and we'll never forget our long video calls, spontaneous talent shows, shared pizzas, and feeling of closeness despite physical distance. The admin and approval panel team took care of so much that it is hard to name it all. Without them, the conference would not work. With every challenge we face, these committed individuals take on the front line, multi-managing everything from our food and snacks to Zoom calls. For their relentless efforts despite the challenges of quarantine, they deserve the thanks of everyone who took part in or watched BERMUN. We thank the heads of admins, Helena, Hannah, and Emma, and their entire team. Another vital and below-the-radar organ of BERMUN is the tech team. Should I read that now? All of it? And also about Alex Gintar?
Let's skip Alex Gintar, let's surprise him.
Now more than ever, their efforts are invaluable. Their tireless aid in testing and fixing our questionably existent Wi-Fi, setting up visuals, and putting up with our general technical inaptitude is greatly appreciated. We extend our thanks to the entire tech team, including Havana and Dr. McDaniel and Mr. We have now reached the end of our conference. Thank you for all of your work, and we hope to see some of you back next year in person. It is now my distinct honor to declare the 29th Annual Berlin Model United Nations Conference as officially closed.
Okay, how much time do we still have? 20 minutes, let's go. Malka, do you need help with that resolution?
Ubi? Will you go with me?
So the Environment Committee is a UN organ that aims to pass resolutions to protect the environment.
I think COVID-19 has made the world more dependent on each other as globalization has heightened, and we all have a responsibility that we all have to withhold.
I think this pandemic period is one that is on everyone's mind, and that there will be a before and an after COVID. We all know that each of us has changed our daily habits to adapt to the health situation. Will depend
3 times is with trauma, Matilda.
Yeah.
3 times is with your trauma. As long as I don't have to hold my address twice, that's okay.
Yeah, yes.
Just take a deep breath. What's 200 minus 7?
Yes, okay. Would the House please come to order? Actually, this time, okay. Honorable Quarantine Secretary General, Deputy Secretary Generals, student officers, delegates, directors, and distinguished guests, welcome to the closing ceremony of the 29th Annual Berlin Model United Nations Conference. One of this year's Deputy Secretary Generals is Conrad Chisholm. Conrad has been part of MUN for 5 years. To sum up his role briefly, he does everything. Thank you for your motivational speeches and hard work. Deputy Secretary General, you now have the floor.
Just 3 days ago, Matilda, our President of the General Assembly, just 3 days ago, Matilda, our President of the General Assembly, concluded her examination of solidarity in the opening ceremony, saying, even if this communication does not end in empathy, we are still building bridges. Building bridges has also been an essential part of our deliberations over the past few days. When we logged on to our committee Zoom calls on Wednesday, most of us had little to no idea if we would successfully be able to connect with other delegates. Throughout the conference days, all of us became more confident in digital debating, and you have easily connected with your fellow conference participants. Regardless if you were lobbying with your greatest ally or if you were arguing with your worst enemy, you actively seized this opportunity and built bridges to come to a mutual understanding with your fellow conference participants, addressing the many crises at hand. When on Friday, you were informed of the intent of Brazil and the Philippines to leave the United Nations, and were informed that the United States wanted to defund it, you did not exclude them. Instead, you crafted a solution together with them in order to address overarching issues which affected all of you. In this situation, you successfully built bridges with others, even if you totally disagreed with their objectives. Today, as we take part in this closing ceremony, and we prepare to return to our day-to-day lives outside of BERMUN, we return to a life in which many problems need to be addressed, as my fellow Deputy Secretary General Morke addressed in her opening ceremony. Be it an issue in your community or a problem as large as the climate crisis, it is vital to engage with people that may not share the same opinion as you to address it. The current pandemic may hinder us in building up or maintaining these connections, but the 29th BERMUN session has shown us that it is very, very possible. Even though the BERMUN conference will be over within the hour, take the spirit with you and build bridges to make the world around you a better place. As we now transition to address the BERMUN crisis, let us keep this idea in mind and attempt to find a resolution that builds bridges to those that may think differently about the United Nations than most of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad, for your remarks on the proceedings of the last few days.
Much has happened since delegates began their work on Wednesday. The United States, who is not only a major funder of the United Nations, but also an essential member, has decided to defund the UN and give up its veto power in the Security Council, just like the Soviet Union did in our historical Security Council. The delegations of Brazil and the Philippines decided to leave the United Nations effective January 1st, 2021. Such action challenges the UN, and with that, every single one of you, delegates, admins, chairs. Matilda Gross, this year's President of the General Assembly, has prepared an address on our collective response to the crisis. Madam President of the General Assembly, you now have the floor.
75 years ago, the Second World War ended, leaving not only the city, but also our former diplomacy and civility in ruins. Human suffering was everywhere. Violence and death no longer new. The League of Nations had allowed Germany to withdraw from their global coalition, and partially because of this inaction, we must look back at a grave past. Berlin has witnessed our failures. What we celebrate when we talk about the 75th anniversary of the United Nations is not the lack of pain. These past years may have been called the long peace, but the lack of global war did not stop us from witnessing destruction and loss, especially this year. What we actually celebrate is the reconciliation with past mistakes and a general promotion of peace. As Yasha Monk addressed in his opening lecture, we will not stop facing challenges to our peace, but we have still made progress. This very progress is threatened by the crisis we have faced over the last few days. It shows that multilateralism is suffering, that member states feel concerned and are feeling irrelevant, that solidarity is not a given. It must be fought for. You, delegates, and chairs have worked hard on constructing compromises through clauses. We have come together to try to mend the gaping hole these countries have highlighted. We have tried to strengthen our union through the powers of the United Nations. The United Nations only functions when there is disagreement and debate, but there must be at least one consensus, that the United Nations itself is a legitimate institution. We must create a forum that all countries can support. Now the fate of this institution is in your hands.
Thank you, Matilda, for giving us a statement on behalf of the Secretariat about the dangers of rejecting international cooperation. The ICJ has prepared a statement on the legality of the actions of Brazil, the US, and the Philippines, which is as follows. Normally, because the Charter gives no clear path for a member state to leave, they are unable to leave. However, if the member state is able to prove that a substantial change has taken place from when the member state had initially joined the organization, clausula rebus sic stantibus, the discretion of circumstances when leaving the United Nations, as previously undefined, would be up to the United Nations. There is no clear legal basis for the funding of the United Nations. Therefore, the ICJ is unable to make a decision on this topic. We encourage the Security Council to decide on this matter for further conflicts. We will now be entertaining some time to read the crisis resolution as a whole before voting on it. Please find the crisis resolution in the debate section of the plenary forum on the platform. Please remember, the resolution is available under the debate section in the plenary forum on the platform. You will be expected to vote shortly. We will now proceed with the voting. After uniting all MUN committees under this common resolution, ambassadors are now expected to vote on behalf of their delegation. Only ambassadors may vote. If you are not an ambassador, please do not. The vote will now be opened. Voting is still open. Please proceed to the plenary section and the debate section and vote on the resolution as a whole. Only ambassadors may vote. Please do so on the behalf of your delegation. All delegations are highly encouraged to vote. Voting has now been stopped. With an overwhelming majority, this resolution passes. Clapping is in order. To round off this crisis, the delegations of the Philippines, US, and Brazil have made short video statements that will be uploaded to their page. Please go to their embassies to watch them after the closing ceremony. Please note that they were also permitted to reverse their decision to leave or defund the United Nations, and to see the result, you must watch their video statements.
Over the past few days, the International Criminal Court debated the case against Al-Hassan. I will now read out the summary and result of this case. The ICC has ruled Al-Hassan guilty. He will receive 16 years in prison and provide compensation to the affected victims. The International Court of Justice has deliberated on the legality of the relocation of the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. I will now read out the result of their case. Versus the United States of America, based on the relocation of the US Embassy, the ICJ has decided to grant Palestine's prayer to the court.
To relate your varied approaches, we will now entertain a short video from the chairs of all BERMUN committees and forums discussing their deliberations over the course of the last 4 days and recounting their favorite experiences from the committees.
participants of BERMUN 2020, dear delegates of EcoSoc. In our committee, despite facing a few complications with failing internet, for example, at the beginning, we managed to craft some valuable and, I must say, really good resolutions. Thank you, delegates of EcoSoc, for making this BERMUN 2020 a very good one.
In the EcoSoc, delegates worked hard all conference and even before the conference to make sure we'd be able to come up with collaborations and compromises that would work for everyone. Unfortunately, this didn't end up working 100% in the end, as no resolutions actually got passed, but we made sure to make an effort to get there.
This year, the Security Council discussed the situation in South Sudan. Although the South Sudanese civil war officially ended earlier this year, the country's civil conflict continues. Over 7 million people are severely malnutritioned and millions are both internally and externally displaced.
So our delegates had a particularly challenging task when it came to finding a sustainable solution regarding this issue. However, after long hours of lobbying and debating, both during and outside the given debate times, the result was a resolution of 14 clauses.
Congratulations to our Security Council delegates for being so productive and energetic. A huge thank you to Leilani and Nico, my co-chairs, and our super hardworking admin, Elena and Ella. You guys are the best team I could have ever asked for. And I hope to have the chance to return to BERMUN next year and hopefully meet you all in person. Danke.
Hey delegates, and welcome to BERMUN 2020. In the HSC, delegates were able to overcome some Cold War tensions and craft some peaceful resolutions to end the Korean War. Thank you, delegates, for making this a valuable experience.
For our committee, the crisis was the Soviet Union boycotting the UN, as this was what actually happened in 1950, the year our debate took place. Delegates represented their policies well by asking the USSR to return, but not succumbing to their demands of giving the PRC veto rights.
Hi, the chairs of the Historical Security Council are very proud of our delegates. They worked very hard and they were always on track, and they gave a lot of positive feedback. So we're very proud of them and very proud of the work they submitted.
My favorite moment in BERMUN 2020 is difficult to choose, and even though our Wi-Fi was lagging quite a bit, our committee, I must say, never lost its connection.
Good afternoon to all participants. My favorite moment of BERMUN 2020 was when my fellow chairs, Isabella, Ian and I wanted to end debate for the day, but our delegates of the PC wouldn't let us until we showed them some more committee observations. Thank you.
I really enjoyed working with the delegates of the PC for the past couple days, from excellent debate to many compliments about my curtains behind me to fun times and great debate, great amendments. So I'm really lucky to have such a great group of delegates.
Honestly, I can't think of only one memorable moment from this year's BERMUN conference, because despite being separated by oceans, we were connected virtually and standing in solidarity as the SPC.
The conference debated the topics tackling violent extremism in the face of globalization and regulating nuclear weapon proliferation as a foundation for global cooperation in an age of increasing militarism. Although these topics have been neglected due to the focus on the coronavirus pandemic, they are and will still remain important issues until resolved.
Despite the unfortunate circumstances the conference had to take place in, I believe we all had great fun. I most certainly did. Though there were many memorable moments in the committee, the best part of it was definitely reading the forum mailbox. I believe that the copious amounts of roars or swoons over how handsome Noah is made everyone laugh.
Hello, the Human Rights Committee made huge progress on the topics of human trafficking and refugees.
My favorite moment of BERMUN 2020 was the heartwarming moment where a delegate told me that even though we have COVID in the world today, this BERMUN was the best BERMUN he's ever been to, and we still manage to connect over oceans, even though this virus is tearing us apart.
All of the delegates of the HRC did an amazing job and worked so well together despite the circumstances. Great job, guys. It was a pleasure to chair in your committee.
This all couldn't have been possible without our great admins and the super fast approval panel.
During the first Digital BERMUN conference, the delegates of the EC addressed the climate change in the light of the current pandemics and the issue of the small-scale fisheries, both crucial for the conference theme.
I went to bed sobbing on Thursday night. Our delegates had told us that apparently the HSC chairs were nicer and that they wanted to join the HSC because of it. I couldn't be more offended.
Although throughout debate and lobbying we may have gotten numerous interrogations from the Russian Federation, the chairs did get some support from Cuba, which definitely I did notice. And ultimately it did lead to some controversies and some support and clauses that definitely led to fruitful debate.
In the WHO, within the confines of our two topics, we've had very long-winded speeches from the delegates like Delegate of Brazil and Delegate of Ethiopia, while having constructive amendments like those submitted by the Delegate of China and Delegate of Sweden.
In the World Health Organization this year, we discussed the topics of regulating traditional and complementary medicines to aid existing healthcare systems, and strengthening global healthcare systems to fight epidemics and pandemics.
Our committee had a lot of really nice moments, like the delegate of Spain's dancing in the background because she forgot to switch her camera off in one of the shorter breaks. And especially when everyone was clapping and it was just complete silence, but you can see everyone clap.
Despite this being the first conference of many delegates, delegates were prepared and active in debate and overwhelmed the chairs with amendments and speeches. By the third day, delegates were very comfortable in their committees, demanding dance battles against each other and complaining about not being able to talk more when they wanted to.
I want to thank our admin Kate for helping us through all the difficulties of Zoom. My favourite moment in our committee was when our delegates thought of so many clauses during lobbying for the crisis that we had to call them back from their lobbying groups 10 minutes early.
In the Youth Assembly, we create concrete action plans to implement in our communities. We emphasize action over simulation. With the help of inspiring guest and keynote speaker presentations, our delegates came up with wonderful blueprints for their initiatives.
Even though this year's conference is virtual, our delegates helped making the last couple of days an incredible experience. Everyone was extremely engaged and we had a great atmosphere. Many icebreakers helped lighten up the mood, and the delegates found a mutual love for dogs.
This year, the YA hosted two amazing guest speakers. The first one, Alex, was not only the founder of the YA in 2005, but he also gave the delegates valuable insight on the topic of sustainability, which they then used in their action plans. The delegates also exchanged ideas over the borders of their country. This helped to create an idea.
The ICJ's court case is now well underway. Advocates made strong cases through their opening statements and witness examinations. Judges, on the other hand, have been especially scrutinous, going so far as to grill a witness to tears.
In the International Court of Justice, our judges immediately came together to voice their common disdain for jazzercise. Meanwhile, our advocates impressed us with their emotional closing speeches.
The ICJ indulged in fruitful debate from our judges and advocates concerning the case of the relocation of the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. The committee stayed hardworking and on task, as well as enjoying the humorous remarks of our presidents.
To all judges, witnesses, and advocates of this year's International Criminal Court, thank you so much for your hard work and relentless engagement. We are thrilled that BERMUN's very first ICC worked so smoothly despite the unprecedented challenges of a virtual conference. Your Harry Potter obsession, continuous TikTok references, and evident love for 19th century literature made for welcome distractions from our rather solemn case.
Although at present the verdict is unknown, we are certain that the vote will be extremely close, as both advocate teams have worked tirelessly in crafting their cases. This committee was only possible with the judges, advocates, and admins' honorable dedication And we hope you share our pride in being BERMUN's first international criminal court. Thank you.
Dear admins, delegates, student officers, the press team, directors, and esteemed guests, we would like to express our appreciation for our hard-working admin team that dedicated a lot of time and effort to ensure the success of this conference. Their ability and willingness to adapt quickly to their new responsibilities has impressed us immensely.
Despite the social distancing, our team worked remarkably well together. While the conference was full of changes and surprises, it was as rewarding as ever, and we are happy to be part of it. The eagerness of all participants is inspiring, and the rigor of student officers and the Secretariat is incredible.
We want to give a special thank you to our Administrative Coordinator, Mrs. Robertson, for her tireless efforts and long nights, some of which ending at 2 a.m. We're extremely grateful and lucky to be able to work with such a kind and dedicated director.
The BERMUN press team made some amazing memories this conference, but we especially loved producing the BERMUN talent show for all of you and working on the crisis. We hope that you guys enjoyed our articles, videos, photography, and art.
A special thank you to Helena Hitken, one of our heads of admin, for compiling this very successful and beautiful video. Thank you.
I would now like to introduce Finn Kraft, our quarantined Secretary General, with whom we, the Secretariat, have had the pleasure of working with since March to create this year's conference. Finn always manages to inject a lighthearted note into late-night meetings, and we are grateful for his help in preparing for the conference. Secretary General, you now have the floor.
Identity is a curious thing. Although it seems to be an inherently personal choice, one where you alone are the master of your persona, there's nothing very individual about it. Francis Fukuyama argues in his book Identity that human beings are intensely social creatures, whose emotional inclinations drive them to want to conform to the norms surrounding them. Inside of the United Nations, the social norm is quite easy to identify. It's your delegation. It's the sum of the ideologies which a government possesses. However, if we take Fukuyama's argument to be true, then we must realize that we are also delegates outside of debate. We all like to pick teams. They allow us to feel like part of something greater than ourselves, and give us a purpose to share with others. Fukuyama claims that central to the formation of teams is this concept of dignity. He describes dignity as a belief in some innate value of an individual, and therefore the belief in a shared identity. We see dignity through commonality, or things we share with other people, and therefore feel a strong connection to them. For example, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights affirms its faith in the dignity and worth of the human person, and the equal rights of women and men, and therefore identifies that our commonality, being human, grants us dignity. A common belief is instrumental in unifying people. All religions have a guiding scripture, almost all countries have constitutions, and all ideologies have manifestos. If you believe in the Quran, for instance, and that Muhammad was God's messenger, you will likely feel connected to other Muslims who share your belief, even if they are strangers. If you believe in the ideals of liberty and equality presented in the French Constitution, you will possibly have a basic respect for any of your countrymen or women who share this belief, and might be ready to die for this cause. If you subscribe to the idea that our planet is in a climate crisis and needs saving, the words of climate activists are likely to resonate with you, and you will prefer to work with other like-minded individuals. As our PGA, Matilda, mentioned in the opening ceremony, the creation of an identity implies an inherent exclusion of others. Not everyone can be part of the same team, for they do not share the same commonalities which warrant dignity. For example, it would be very difficult for an African American to join the Ku Klux Klan, for this racist organization is unified around its members' white ethnicity and belief in superiority. Similarly, a successful stockbroker would not be able to identify with the communist state of Venezuela, because a key feature of their government is their moral denial of capitalism. An identity doesn't just tell us who we are, it determines who we aren't. Polarization is an inherent feature of all liberal societies. It is the lifeblood of any healthy democracy, for opposingly radical ideas can cancel each other out and lead to compromise. Political scientist and author Jonathan Haidt refers to the sort of competition as institutional disconfirmation. It's a mechanism by which truth and justice are achieved through the presence of intellectual diversity and civil disagreement. Perhaps the greatest example of this mechanism at work is the United Nations, where each nation is assembled to represent their vastly diverse views in an attempt to find international justice. One resolution never entirely satisfies one nation. Rather, it is a compromise of ideas that the majority of nations can live with. However, this sort of healthy polarization can only work when, between all these different groups, there is an overarching belief which leads to civility. In the UN, this lies in our mission of peace, cooperation, and securing the dignity of all humans. Within most nations, this belief lies in a general national identity. Failure to identify with such a common identity, and therefore the dignity of your adversaries, leads to the emergence of fragmentation and echo chambers. In an echo chamber, the righteous cries of its members are heard only by those inside it, and amplified. Through the isolation and ignorance of its adversaries, a group of individuals increasingly becomes more exclusionary with its criteria for dignity, and therefore becomes less diverse. Simultaneously, through this isolation, it begins to believe in its own superiority, for it only ever encounters opposition in the form of straw men, viewed from the narrow spectacle of their own identity. Fukuyama argues that people like this become determined to defeat, not understand their perceived foes. Former President Barack Obama recently said that the US government has now become a contest where issues and facts don't matter as much as identity and wanting to beat the other guy. As soon as this happens, the very foundations of democracies, cooperation and compromise, begin to falter. Major political parties begin to accuse their adversaries of being opponents to democracy and, ultimately, unpatriotic. As a result, trust in the most basic elements of our liberal government, such as fair elections and a free speech, has begun to crumble. Although this has most recently been seen in the United States, many Western governments are following this example. In order to amend the damage of fragmentation to our society, we must return to a broader perception of dignity and a general will. Jean-Jacques Rousseau's belief that humans are fundamentally good and have value is a basis for all modern liberal governments. This belief is central to the UN Charter and further enshrined in the constitutions of Germany, Russia, the United States, France, China, and much more. It is the standard by which we all become a part of the same team, humanity, and therefore affirm each other's dignity. Nevertheless, this belief in the equality of all humans can easily slide into hypocrisy and cause division instead of unity. It can lead us to believe that certain opinions are dangerous and wrong, for they speak against our belief in universal dignity. We might not even want to entertain them out of fear that they might harm or offend others. According to Jonathan Haidt, an institution which especially embodies this attitude is the Western University. In recent years, the fundamentally liberal persuasion of these universities has led to a belief that conservative or right-wing speech vilifies their dignity. One example of this attitude is UC Berkeley's protests against a conservative speaker in 2017. They claimed that this individual's thinking was harmful and promoted violent, hateful speech. This resulted in the speaker's cancellation. And while this behavior does ensure the immediate mental health of these individuals which we are trying to protect, there also lies a greater danger in this sort of thinking. Firstly, when we decide not to listen to our adversaries, we fail to understand the possible flaws in our own thinking. By erasing civil discourse, both parties become subject to their own echo chambers, for they denied the possibility to hear a valid argument which favors a different opinion. Secondly, to shelter oneself from dialogue is to misunderstand the very nature of free speech, a crucial element of all civil societies. We must recognize that any and all free thinking risks being offensive. If we do not feel challenged or offended by a new idea, then it is not truly contrarian, for it does not stir us. Thirdly, by denying the value and therefore dignity of our adversaries, we make the assumption that our perception of the world is right and better than the others. Through this dogmatic assertion, we begin to believe that we are superior, and cease to believe in the very idea which led us to this assumption, that all humans have equal dignity. Our belief in the equal dignity of all humans should unite us, not divide us. The philosopher John Stuart Mill put it best. He who only knows his side of the case knows little of that. His reasons may be good, and no one may be even able to refute them. But if he is equally unable to refute the reasons on the opposite side, he has no ground for preferring either opinion. He must be able to hear opinions from persons who actually believe them. He must know them in their most plausible form. Hearing and understanding opposing ideas is not to indulge our adversaries' opinions, nor is it a sign of weakness, as Matilda said. Instead, it is an instrument to better understand our own opinions. In the opening ceremony, we all heard Hedena say that democracy needs Democrats, but what does this mean? If I asked you what you identify with, the first answer likely wouldn't be that you are a Democrat. We, as individuals, tend to most personally identify with smaller and more particular communities and communalities. We usually see ourselves within the identity of our country or state or city, or the music we listen to. However, if we are to remain a united nations, we must all, at some level, hold the most basic democratic ideal of human dignity for everyone, not just those who look or think like us. In the end, this is what makes us Democrats, and unites all members of this organization. Thank you.
For all of us, what role identity plays in shaping politics, and the importance of exposing ourselves to perspectives that challenge our own ideas. To reflect further on the work that has been done over the last 4 days, the press team has put together a short video.
Distinguished delegates, honorable directors and chairs, administrative staff, press team, and everyone who made this extraordinary conference possible, we thank you. You delegates are the next generation, and you have proven through willingness to negotiate that you can solve a crisis within a crisis. In fact, such challenges are likely to grow in the coming future. This conference has given you the tools to meet them. You have shown that by working as one community in solidarity, we have the means and the institutions, like the United Nations, to resolve our differences and meet global challenges.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to BERMUN Radio. Get ready to vibe.
I am Taya Zhuang, and I am second time.
Hey guys, my name is Jaewon Lim and I'm part of the Historical Security Council and I'm representing the Republic of South Korea. At the Historical Security Council, our main goal is to achieve world peace and world security.
I'm the delegate of Sudan for the Environment Committee. So the Environment Committee is a UN organ that aims to pass resolutions to protect the environment.
I think COVID-19 has made the world more dependent on each other as globalization has heightened, and we all have a responsibility that we all have to withhold.
I think this pandemic period is one that is on everyone's mind, and that there will be a before and an after COVID. We all know that each of us has changed our daily habits to adapt to the health situation, and that our future will depend on our actions today.
Hi, I'm Melina. I represent
And I think BERMUN Conference Online has been really cool so far, as the platform is really cool, and I think it's a really cool way to join students all together from all around the world without having to actually physically meet each other, and I think I'm really looking forward to the next ones.
My experience on the BERMUN platform is great. Everything is going smoothly in my committee. I find it very well made and very effective.
Hello, my name is Tanya Kumble and I'm a judge in the International Court of Justice. So the ICC investigates individuals responsible for committing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of aggression.
Hi, I'm Axel. I'm come from Poland, and this year I belong to the Economic and Social Council Committee. In my committee, we talk about promoting higher standards of living, full employment, and economic social progress.
UN peacekeeping is the largest
Just like you delegates, admins, chairs, and even directors faced a complex crisis throughout the conference, we, the video team, had to deal with our own little crisis, in form of a corrupted hard drive. We only managed to surpass this through communication, collaboration, and the sharing of ideas. As well as all the challenging debate and problem solving our delegates displayed, we also got to see some of their personal talents. From singing to stand-up to gymnastics. This year's talent show had everything to offer.
Much I liked you, but I'd watch your eyes as she was by. What a sight for sore
My name is Donald Trump from the USA, the greatest country ever. Let me show you the way. You are so irrelevant. Look at my politics. Horde looking at elections like a bunch of lunatics.
from Sri Lanka. Yeah, I'm in that Tonka, color of Willy Wonka. You could be the king, but watch the queen conquer. First things first, I'll eat your brains. Then I'ma start rocking gold teeth and fangs.
That's what a mother trucker monster do. Hair just up in Milan, that's a monster do.
France. Bonjour, enchanté. Fancy seeing you here. Excuse me, I'm just a bit curious about the rules of procedure. It is painful to hear this. It is all explained on the website.
This being our last conference.
Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down?
We would also like to extend our gratitude to all journalists, editors, and photographers of the press team. Under the guidance of our press directors, Mr. Robertson and Ms. Cupp, your contribution to BERMUN is greatly appreciated.
We would also like to take this time to extend our gratitude to everyone involved in executing this year's BERMUN. First and foremost, we would like to thank all of you. As delegates, your preparation, professionalism, and enthusiasm has allowed this year's conference to be a success in all forums. Of course, none of us would be here if it weren't for all our directors here in this plenary. We thank you for your commitment and all of the time and organization you have spent to provide this opportunity to your students, from registration to preparing your delegates. We owe our success in large part to your guidance. Please take the time to reach out to your director and thank them. We would particularly like to thank our BERMUN directors for the countless after-work and weekend hours they have spent with and for us in shaping BERMUN 2020. The hard work has truly paid off, and we could not be more thankful to you. We would especially like to emphasize the contribution of Mrs. Robertson, the conference's backbone, or more officially, our conference manager. If it had not been for her love for every last detail, this year's conference would have not been possible. Thank you for your unlimited commitment and your unfailing belief in us. She is currently still running around somewhere at the John F. Kennedy School, but later, when we can find her again, please accept these flowers as a token of our gratitude. Thank you.
Another integral part of BERMUN is, of course, the student officer team. Finally, you have watched all your preparations come to life, as abstract as they might have been this year. As chairs in your committees, you managed crises, planned or unplanned, and handled them impressively. We've enjoyed the process of working with you all, and we'll never forget our long video calls, spontaneous talent shows, shared pizzas, and feeling of closeness, despite physical distance. The admin and approval panel team took care of so much that it is hard to name it all. Without them, the conference would not work. With every challenge we face, these committed individuals take on the front line, multi-managing everything from our food and snacks to Zoom calls. For their relentless efforts, and despite the challenges of quarantine, they deserve the thanks of everyone who took part in or watched BERMUN. We thank the heads of admin, Helena, Hannah, and Emma, and their entire team. Another vital and below-the-radar organ of BERMUN is the tech team. Now, more than ever, their efforts are invaluable. Their tireless aid in testing and fixing our questionably existent Wi-Fi, setting up visuals, and putting up with our general technical ineptitude is greatly appreciated. We extend our thanks to the entire tech team, including Havana, Dr. McDaniel, and Mr. Marroquin. Lastly, we would particularly like to thank Alex Gintar for designing the conference platform we all used. His ability to integrate all of our complicated ideas and so much more was awesome. The result is amazing, and our conference could not have been the same without you. Let's give him a hand. Woo! Woo! And with that, we have now reached the end of our conference. Thank you for all of your hard work, and we hope to see some of you back next year in person. It is now my distinct honor to declare the 29th Annual Berlin Model United Nations Conference as officially closed. Okay, just for...
Dear participants of BERMUN 2020, dear delegates of EcoSoc, in our community, despite facing a few complications with failing internet, for example, at the beginning, we managed to craft some valuable and, I must say, really good resolutions. Thank you, delegates of EcoSoc.